What up, what up? Good morning, you guys. Sira Satyat here in Singapore. I wanted to jump on because I've been trying to go live on Instagram and it's not letting me. I don't know what's going on. And I tried to do an episode last night at like, I don't know, 10 o'clock, and it wouldn't let me. But it's all good. I'm here now. And I wanted to relay an experience I had yesterday. So even though I coach, even though I help other people, I still go through my own stuff, right? And yesterday was important to me because it reminded me just how important it is to be allowed to tell your story and then also to consider what that means for the other person, for the characters in your story. So the reason I named this Can I Tell My Story is because honestly speaking, no one has the right to tell you how to narrate your life experience. Okay? If you feel a certain way, if you feel like certain people are the villain in your story, that's how you feel. You're allowed to feel that way. But on the flip side, it's going to be painful for those people to hear it and feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not the villain, I'm a good person. Because guess what? Everyone is the hero in their own story, correct? Which means at some point I'm going to have to wrestle with the fact that I am the bad guy in someone's story. It's not going to feel nice. It's not going to feel good. I'm going to want to revolt against that. But the only thing I cannot do is tell them, no, you can't say that. I'm not that person. Because to them, I am. I cannot change anyone's perspective of me in the past. I can work towards a better future. I can work towards correcting those mistakes in the future because honestly, we don't know how people take any of our actions or any of our words. It's why we were always taught, if you can't say nothing nice, don't say nothing at all. Because at least you don't create any drama for yourself, right? So yesterday I had an argument with someone I love dearly. And we've had a really rocky start, man. I've known her all my life, and she's a wonderful person. She's the most giving, most selfless person I've ever met. But there were a couple times in my life where I felt like she was selfish. And it's difficult to say that out loud because I know who she is. I know what kind of person she is, but she also needs to understand that sometimes it hurts me the way she makes her decisions. So what's the best way to fix that, right? I got to tell my story. She's got to be hurt by my story, unfortunately, in order for her to understand that, hey, you know what? People are still affected. But then what needs to happen after that? I'm not going to leave it as she gets hurt. No. I need to sit down and talk to you and explain exactly what part of that hurt me so you understand better. There's always a way around it. You don't have to kill anybody off. You don't have to destroy anyone. There's always a way around it. If I tell you that a choice you made me feel like you were being selfish and you left me out, the best thing that can happen is you hear that. Unfortunately, yes, you will be upset by it because that was not your intention. But at least going forward, we can figure out, okay, if this specific way of me doing things makes you upset, then I will try and find a better way to do it so I can still get what I want and you don't get upset by it. So I told you yesterday I wasn't going to be vague. I wasn't going to use broad terms anymore, right? But I need to get you in the mood for this. I need to get you to understand this real quick, okay? So I'm going to give you an example from my own life. My brother and I were very, very young, and for a long time it was just the two of us. And I got used to handling his problems for him because I'm the big sister. And he was a little guy. I did not want anyone picking on him. I didn't like it. And for a long time, he would ask me to come help him. Hey, can you handle this person for me? Hey, can you handle that person for me? Sure, I don't mind. I don't mind being like, the mob boss kind of person and go in there and like rile up some people or scare some people and they don't mess with you no more because they know I'm around. But what I also did not realize is in doing that, in indulging him, I was not teaching him to stand up for himself. Going forward, it would become more of like a crutch thing where he believed that he couldn't handle it himself, that only I could handle it, and he would ask me to come handle it. Which also means that, in a bully's eyes, well, when your sister's around, I can't do nothing, but guess what? She's not around all the time. So you still better watch your back. I set him up for more bullying. And I didn't realize that. I was the villain in his story. Here I was thinking, you know what? I gave up a lot of my time to make sure that I was around you, making sure that you were okay. And yeah, at the time, I was maybe 10. And I was a girl. So what does it look like for a boy to have a girl fight his battles? Yeah, okay, we're talking about stigma here. But this is back in the 90s. I was destroying his credibility without even knowing that there was such a thing as credibility, because I don't even know if I knew that word at that point. But the bottom of all of this is he asked for what he knew would help in the moment. Long term, it hurt him. And I didn't know it, and he didn't know it until later. And now I'm being blamed for things that I didn't even consider as being a bad thing. No, I'm not mad at him. I get it. I understand. I wish I'd known that back then, but I can't change his past now. And he's done a really great job of making sure that no one can ever pick on him again, because he's a triple degree black belt in Taekwondo. And he is a medic in the army. And it don't get much tougher than all of that. He could definitely take you down. But I can't tell him how he tells his story. I can't make him edit out the story and make me the good guy in the story. Because in his story, at that point in his life, I was the bad guy. I'll give you another example. I believe everyone is a pretty good person. But I believe the role you play in certain people's lives isn't always great. Case in point, I married a man I thought was a great father. I thought he was just wonderful. Why? Because my father wasn't around a lot, so I got to see him running around with his kids all day long in his car, doing the best he could. And I was like, wow, I was blown away by that. But that was only part of the story. Because here I go, excited to, rescue some people. And I thought, hey, this man could use some love, because he always talking about all the women he's been with, and they always leave him, or they always want his money, or they always using him for something, right? For power or influence or whatever. And they're never worth a damn. They always take care of themselves in the end. They always try to tie him down by getting pregnant. I was like, well, I'm not none of those things. I bet you I can help this man. So here I go, stupid and young, falling in love. And I met the kids, and I was like, wow, these kids are great. And me having been through an abortion before I met him, I was like, dang, you know what? God is great. God gave me an instant family where I gave up a child of my own. So let me do the best I can by them. And I did. So where he was running around by himself, taking care of his kids, when I came into the picture, there was another person that could help him out. And guess what? He gave me the entire burden. I would get up in the morning, drive over to his place, pick up the kids, drop them off at daycare, and then go to work, where we both worked together. And in the evenings, because he worked sales, so he didn't have a set time where he'd get off of work, he worked sales, I worked marketing. As soon as I got off, it became my responsibility to go down, get the kids from daycare, bring them back to work because he hadn't come home yet, and we would hang out together until we could all go home together. And that was great. I felt good about that. I was making a difference in their lives. And eventually, we moved in together, we got married, everything, and they became my kids. Like, not officially, because I never got a chance to adopt them, but I took care of them. I did everything. I dropped them to school in the morning. I checked on their homework. I made dinner. I made lunch. I made breakfast. I was that girl. I picked up and pulled everything together. I created a family out of a single father, two kids from two different mothers, both mothers who did not get along with each other and barely got along with the father, and I pulled all of that together, added me to the mix, and I made home. But because I was able to take care of everything, like no other girl that he had ever been with before, it kind of removed some of the responsibility from him. Because if I could take care of it, then I was thinking, okay, I take care of all these things, then you can actually go out there and make the kind of living you want to make, because he didn't want to be in sales. He wanted to be an entrepreneur. He wanted to run a club, and he wanted to throw, big concerts and stuff. He wanted to do all those things. So I was thinking, hey, you know what? Let me take care of all of this so you can focus on that and you can make a good go of it. What I didn't realize was I was emasculating him. The things that made him a man before, because he was taking care of his kids, no longer made him a man now, because I was taking care of all of it. Now, on the flip side, when I tell the rest of the story, he's the bad guy in my story. He effectively removed everyone from my life. He told me that my girlfriends were trying to get with him. And I was like, I don't need girlfriends like that. Cut them off. He told me the guys that I was hanging out with and friendly with, because I'm friendly with everybody, right? He told me that they were trying to get with me, and they were disrespecting him in the process. And I was like, I don't need people like that. Cut them off. I already lived an hour and a half away from any family member, and because I lived so far away, it became one of those, oh my gosh, you have to go over there right now because it takes this much time to go there and this much time to come back, and then you're going to spend all evening there, whatever, and I won't get to see you. Cut him off, because my relationship was important to me. So here I was, alienated from anyone who could have listened to me or made sense of my story or helped me figure out that it was not the right situation to be in. And I was trying to hold a marriage together with a man I had effectively set free from any responsibility because I was handling it all, and we would argue about dumb stuff. In my mind, if I take care of house and home, I take care of the kids, I take care of meals, I take care of my own work, I pay half the bills. I paid all the bills except for the rent, right? If I do all of that, in my mind, you don't have to do nothing but come home and take care of me. Now, I didn't ever say that to him, but that was my experience. That was my reasoning, my belief. But that's not what he did. When he came home, he was tired and stressed out from work. I was happy to take care of him too, mind you. But usually when he came home, it was after work, he'd go out and hang out with his boys and hang out with his cousins and hang out at the club, and he'd come home really late, and by then I was asleep. So I don't get a chance to actually see him, and that rift between us grew bigger and bigger and bigger. There was no intimacy left. So in my story, he's the bad guy. He didn't start out to be, but he was. And no one in their right mind can ever tell me to change the story. Because in my mind, emotional abuse to me looks like being ignored. It hurts me to the core. I don't like being ignored. It hurts me badly. I feel abandoned all over again. I lived through 3 abortions with him. I was threatened to be kicked out of the house if I didn't do what he told me to do, the way he told me to do it. I was afraid. I was afraid of him. He was a lot bigger than I was. He had a temper. He used to brag about how he, dealt with the exes in his life. He would tell me stories of how he used to, leave them by changing the locks one day and wouldn't tell them. Or he'd pack up and move while they were at work one day, and there would be no sign of him when they got home from work. All those things kept running through my mind like, oh my God, this could happen to me. I have to behave myself because there are 2 kids hanging in the balance. And eventually there was a third. It was my child. But no one can tell me how to tell my story. He can't tell me that, nope, you can't say my name. You can't tell people that this is what I did, because that's actually what you did. You may not have seen your actions that way, but that's how it felt to me, and that is my story. And you're welcome to tell people that I'm terrible and I'm crazy or whatever it is, because that's how you justify your life. But I know who I am, and everybody who knows me knows who I am, and that'll be something you'll have to reconcile later. But the moral of this whole podcast episode is, no one gets to tell you how you tell your story. And given enough time and some guidance and extra information, you may change the way you tell your story. But that's your prerogative. That's your responsibility. That's up to you how you tell your story. No one can tell you how. No one can tell you that's wrong. Now, on the flip side, I know this as well. In that conversation I had yesterday, when I told my story and said, hey, I feel like you're abandoning me. I feel like you always chose other people over me. The immediate reaction was defense. Oh, fine. Well, I can't do nothing right. I'm just terrible. Why am I even alive? I get that feeling too. I understand that. I've been there too. But when you do that, you effectively shut down any kind of communication so we can make a better future. When you go on the defensive and you're talking about, oh my gosh, nothing I do is right. Everything I touch turned to shit. Now I can't, I was the worst, friend ever, and I was the worst this ever. When you do that, it means that you're no longer willing to listen to how we can make this better. If I'm opening up to you and telling you, hey, the way you did this hurt me, you can't tell me it didn't hurt you. You can't tell me that you're the worst person ever. Because then we're not even talking about what's actually the problem. Now I got to calm you down. And I get it. It's hurtful. It's painful. And that's how you feel sometimes. But nowhere in that conversation did I tell that person that they were worthless. You may feel worthless because that's what you're hearing, but I never said that to you. And this is why mental health is so, so, so important. It matters what you tell yourself about a conversation. For me, it's about teaching you how to get to the absolute value of a situation. Take out all the emotion, what actually happened. And then work from there. But I get it. I get that point of view, and I get my point of view too. And I'm here to tell you, no one can tell you how to tell your story. That's up to you. And once you tell your story, I understand people will be hurt, people will be offended. But that's your story. And then their story will be about how they overcame that, or how they were offended by you. I need you to understand this. If you have questions, please ask me. Let's have a discussion about this. If you're offended by what I'm saying, tell me, let me know, so I can explain or help you understand the reasoning behind what I'm saying. There are a million different viewpoints. There are a million different ways to tell a story. I actually really love it when, famous fairy tales, they get the villain's point of view and tell that story instead. Wicked, I loved it. Once Upon a Time, I loved it. Because in the end, they were all human. They had a human experience. They were allowed to feel upset about things that the good guys did. They were allowed to feel triggered by something someone did. And yeah, of course, they went on a rampage. It's not okay, but I understand why. And now that I understand why, I could have possibly sat down and talked to them and say, hey, how important was that? Revenge doesn't ever get you what you want. You never get those people back. You never get that moment back. You can punish them, but they may never understand why you're trying to punish them in the first place until you sit down and tell them, hey, you did this, it hurt my feelings, and I want revenge. And at least that point they can say, hey, you know what, I did this because something else happened, it triggered me, and I didn't mean to hurt you. You were collateral damage. But at least I can make it up to you. I can help you feel better about it. I feel really terrible about this. And that's the whole point. Each person's story, they're always the hero. They're never the bad guy in their own story. Terrorists, they're the good guy in their story. Trump, he's the good guy in his story. Your perspective matters. Don't change that for nobody. Change it for yourself. Learn to understand everyone around you. So those little things don't bother you anymore. There are less bad guys when you understand people. I hope this makes sense, you guys. I love you. I'll talk to you soon.